Welcome to the garden. Take a slow breath with me. Do you smell that earthy scent of damp soil mingling with the morning dew? The late spring air is so perfectly crisp. If you're like me, you've probably spent a few peaceful hours recently wandering the sunlit aisles of your local nursery. I always get lost looking at those lush hanging baskets. You bring them home, place them on your patio, and they instantly make the space feel alive. Pour yourself a warm cup of tea, find a comfortable spot, and let's spend some quiet time together. But I want to talk about something that happens to almost all of us. You bring home those premium container flowers, and then, about 14 days later, a heartbreaking transformation happens. Those lush vines collapse into crispy foliage, the stems start rotting, and those vibrant buds drop off before they even open. It is so incredibly frustrating. But please hear this. This failure is not your fault. You do not have a black thumb. What you are experiencing is simply a breakdown in the unseen world of container physics. The transition from a perfect, climate-controlled greenhouse to a breezy, sunny patio is incredibly harsh. Today, we are going to dive deeply into the why behind this 14-day heartbreak and exactly how to prevent it. By the end of our time together, you'll understand the secret language of your container flowers. We will explore how to build the perfect soil foundation, the truth about drainage, and how to read the physical signs your plants are giving you. We are going to turn that patio graveyard into a thriving summer oasis. Let's roll up our sleeves and look at the 3 most common flowers that seem to break our hearts. Let's talk about the high mortality trio. First, the heavy feeders, petunias and calibrachoas. When healthy, a petunia stem is coated in tiny hairs that secrete a sticky resin, catching the sunlight. Then we have our heat-sensitive zonal geraniums, with softly velvety leaves marked by a deep burgundy horseshoe pattern. Finally, the shade-loving impatiens. In a commercial greenhouse, they are fed continuously. But when they hit the plastic edge of a nursery pot, their aggressive roots start circling, creating a dense, tangled mat. This root behavior is the first domino to fall in the 2-week countdown. This tangled mat brings us to our first step: repotting with intention. The death clock on your blooms starts the moment they leave the nursery. When you slide that plant out of its plastic pot, you will see a thick wall of white circling roots. If we place this bound root ball straight into a new pot, those roots will keep circling until the plant starves. We must be brave. Take sterile pruners and gently score the root ball vertically, about 1 inch deep, in 4 places. It feels a little harsh, but it is truly an act of care. If the bottom of that root ball is severely matted, go ahead and slice the bottom 1/2 inch completely off. When you sever these roots, you are breaking what botanists call apical dominance. This sends a chemical signal, a surge of growth hormones called auxins, down to the root tips, encouraging them to branch out laterally. It's like telling the plant it is free to spread out. Giving your plant the ability to stretch its legs into fresh soil is the most critical step to ensuring it survives past those initial 2 weeks. Container soil is not like garden soil. Never use heavy topsoil or straight compost in your pots. Instead, we want to create a fluffy, breathable matrix. I love blending 60% peat moss or cocoa coir to hold moisture, 30% coarse perlite to create tiny air pockets, and 10% worm castings for gentle biological life. Container roots need a delicate balance. They need microscopic pores to drink from, and larger spaces, called macropores, to actually breathe oxygen. If the soil is heavy, those air spaces collapse. While we're talking about soil, let's dispel a destructive gardening myth. You've likely heard you should put a layer of gravel at the bottom of your pot to improve drainage. I used to do this myself. But horticultural science tells us otherwise. Because of capillary action, moisture will not move from fine potting soil into coarse gravel until the soil is completely saturated. Adding rocks simply pushes that soggy layer of wet soil higher up, directly into your root zone, creating a perched water table. Skip the gravel entirely. Let's talk about how to nestle our newly freed plants into this beautiful soil. Spatial geometry is important. Ensure the top of the root ball sits exactly 1 to 1.5 inches below the rim of your new container. This gap acts as our water reservoir. But please, be incredibly careful not to bury the actual crown of the plant. Burying the crown introduces moisture and soil-borne pathogens directly to the delicate stem tissue, quickly leading to basal rot. Just pat the soil gently around the sides without packing it down too hard. With our plants happily tucked in, we must master the art of watering. Shallow daily sprinkles are the enemy. Instead, we want to practice the drench and dry method. When you water, pour deeply until you see about 20% of that water flowing freely out of the bottom drainage holes. This is the leach fraction. Then, walk away. Do not water again until the top 2 inches of the soil feel completely dry to the touch, or until you gently lift the pot and notice it feels about half as heavy as it did when it was fully watered. This drench and dry cycle is magical. Think of it like a set of breathing bellows. As that heavy flush of water slowly drains out the bottom, it physically pulls fresh oxygen down from the surface directly into those soil macropores. The roots get to drink, and then they take a deep breath. Shallow watering never flushes away accumulated nursery fertilizer salts, and it keeps the upper roots chronically soggy. That dampness is an open invitation for water molds like Pythium to set in, which is often the true culprit when a plant dies. How do we know if the moisture is just right? Perfectly hydrated potting mix shouldn't feel like sticky mud. It should feel exactly like a thoroughly wrung-out kitchen sponge. It will be cool to the touch, yielding just slightly under your pressure and springing back without leaving a wet residue on your skin. When the soil hits this perfect balance, the plant thrives. In the mid-morning heat, a happy container garden will reward you with the sharp, spicy scent of warm geranium leaves and the sweet perfume of petunias filling the patio air. Even with the best care, things can go wrong. Let's talk about a confusing symptom: wilting. We've been taught that if a plant is drooping, it's thirsty. But wilting is just a loss of internal water pressure. This can happen because the soil is bone dry, yes, but it can also happen because the soil is waterlogged. If the roots drown and die from lack of oxygen, they can no longer absorb water, so the plant wilts while sitting in a puddle. If your plant is wilting, but the soil feels heavy and wet, stop watering immediately and let it breathe. On the opposite end of the spectrum is a sneaky issue called hydrophobic peat. Sometimes you let a pot get a little too dry. When you go to water it, the water instantly rushes down the sides and out the bottom. You think it's hydrated, but an hour later, the plant is still wilting. When peat moss dries out completely, it literally repels water. It shrinks away from the pot wall, creating a hidden chasm. If this happens, simply submerge the entire pot in a bucket of water for 30 minutes to gently break that surface tension and rehydrate it. As we move into summer, we have to talk about the sun. Imagine sitting on a hot patio in a black sweater. That's what it feels like for roots trapped inside dark plastic pots on a southern exposure. Direct sun can bake dark plastic, pushing soil temperatures well over 110 degrees. At this heat, roots shut down and can't take up water, causing midday wilting. To protect them, I love the double pot method. Drop your plastic nursery pot inside a slightly larger decorative cachepot. That air gap acts as brilliant thermal insulation. Have you ever noticed the newest leaves of your petunias turning bright yellow while the veins stay starkly dark green? It's a beautiful but concerning pattern called interveinal chlorosis. Most people rush to add fertilizer, but this is usually an iron lockout caused by tap water. City tap water is often alkaline. Over a couple of weeks, constant watering raises the soil's pH above 6.5. The iron is still there, but the high pH chemically locks it up so roots can't absorb it. Using a gentle acidifier or rainwater brings that green back. Finally, we must bravely face the bugs. If your beautiful flowers suddenly lose their luster, turning dusty or covered in microscopic yellow stippling, you might suspect sunburn. But it might be spider mites, which thrive in hot, dry, windless patio corners. Here is a trick to diagnose them. Hold a crisp white paper underneath the leaves and gently tap the stem. If you see tiny specks of dirt fall and start crawling around, you have mites. A gentle but thorough spray with the garden hose is a great chemical-free way to disrupt their dry little homes. When we put all these pieces together, freeing the roots, engineering fluffy soil, practicing patient watering and buffering heat, something magical happens. You create a deeply resilient ecosystem. Your plants will have enough inner water pressure to resist heavy winds. Those healthy stems will sway with a joyful elasticity. In the late afternoon, you'll watch bumblebees land aggressively on your calibrachoa blooms. The flower will bob gracefully under the bee's weight, holding strong and full of life. It's a beautifully kinetic, satisfying reward. Gardening is a constant, gentle conversation with nature. Sometimes we misunderstand what our plants are trying to tell us, and that is perfectly okay. Dropped buds and a little wilt are natural parts of the journey, not a reflection of your ability. By understanding the science beneath the soil, the drainage, the root space, and the temperatures, you have taken the biggest step toward a thriving garden. Don't be afraid to get your hands dirty and trust your instincts. You are perfectly capable of keeping these lovely blooms happy well past that 2-week mark. Thank you so much for spending this quiet time in the garden with me today. I would absolutely love to hear what is growing on your patio right now. Are you planting vibrant petunias, or maybe trying your hand at elegant geraniums? Please, tell me all about it in the comments below. If you enjoyed our time together, consider subscribing so we can continue these cozy garden chats. Until next time, be gentle with yourselves. Take a moment to smell the damp earth, and happy growing, my friends.